What's up, everyone? In today's video, we have some more giant earnings to go over. We have some great predictions for tomorrow, and we have a $3.1 million trade from today that you definitely don't want to miss. So make sure to stick with us all the way to the end of today's video. Like I said, we have some great setups, and we have to talk about the increasingly big earnings that we have going into tomorrow. So with that being said, Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, Mike. Yesterday, we actually had Microsoft report in after hours, and what did we see? We saw them fly up a ton, and they're actually up 7.24% at close today. And everybody thought, well, hey, maybe with Microsoft's earnings going well and with Google popping up at least at first yesterday and having good ad revenue, that Meta might end up popping up as well. And guess what we saw in after hours? Meta held up above $200. But even more importantly than that, Mike, we're all the way up to 230 now. This stock is straight up exploding right now as they beat on the top and the bottom line. If we go to the article that shows everything here, they beat their EPS expectation by about 20 cents, depending on which analyst you look at out there. The revenue came in slightly above about $1 billion more. I know that's not the biggest percentage, but to beat by $1 billion in this type of market is huge, especially with a lot of stocks that have been missing and stuff like that lately. Daily active users did well. Monthly active users were right at expectations too. So seems like good old Meta's doing pretty well for us, Mike. And I will say they were one of the really overextended stocks that I was looking at on the daily chart for a potential drop. But with these good earnings, man, it looks like they're continuing up here. And on the daily, they're going to be opening up so much higher tomorrow. They're about to get in that big gap from that big, terrible report last year.
That's the thing, Tom. So they've been on a tear lately, and I'm with you. Like, Meta was one of the stocks that I was the most concerned about for this earnings season because they were already up over 150% from their lows. And, they're a giant company as it is, and it's like, now they're up another, whatever percent in after hours right now. So they're booming. And they're definitely overextended to the upside, but there's basically nothing that can stop this uptrend until the sentiment changes. So for example, we could have Meta that's overextended, but there's nothing that'll stop it from getting even more overextended and even more overextended in the future unless the sentiment around the stock changes. And right now, it's definitely overwhelmingly bullish.
Yeah, exactly. And they're doing a lot of big stuff for the future as well. It's not just like, oh, well, hey, they ended up beating and doing pretty well on earnings here. Like, they actually have good forecasts as well for the next quarter. That's great. Looks like their forecast is 29.5 to 32 billion. They were expecting sales of 29.5. So to see it, be between 29.5 and 32 is pretty big. If it came in at 31, that would be pretty much higher over that expectation there. And I know that they've been investing a lot into the metaverse. They've been obviously working on those Oculus headsets and tons of other stuff like that in the background too. So I can't wait to see what they talk about at their conference call. And they've also been positioning themselves, Mike, and making some good strategies. I actually saw some stuff today that they're planning another round of job cuts in May. And look at this, they've already had some 21,000 job cuts. So it looks like they're trying to strategize to get those numbers better. And so far, it's definitely been helping this year.
Yeah, as Zuckerberg said himself, this year is the year of efficiency for Meta, and investors have been loving it so far very clearly, as we can see on the chart. So good stuff there. Guys, don't forget, with earnings season, there's also a lot of opportunity to trade the stocks even after earnings. So keep Meta and even Microsoft and Google from yesterday close on watch going into tomorrow. But Tom, we also have some pretty big earnings for tomorrow too. So fill us in.
Yeah, exactly. So tomorrow before open, we have American Airlines, Caterpillar, Lilly, Valero, Southwest, MasterCard. Man, there's just so many tomorrow. Even AbbVie down there kind of mixed in with some of those healthcare stocks. But in after hours is, in my opinion, where the fun really starts. We have Amazon, Intel, Snapchat, Cloudflare, First Solar, US Steel, Pinterest, Gilead. I mean, there's so many huge stocks here. Obviously, Amazon is going to be the big watcher. They are one of the biggest e-commerce marketplaces out there. So keep that in mind. And even bigger than that, Mike, their web services and cloud section of their company is almost even bigger, I think.
Yeah, there we go. So good stuff there. The earnings season volatility has not gone away this week just yet. So we still have a couple more exciting reports. So that's great to look forward to. But Tom, with that being said, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. I'll tell you, Apple has been a stock I've been watching so close over the past week and especially over the past couple days. It's been getting weaker and weaker in the sense of the fact that it's making lower highs and lower lows. These are both bearish signals. On top of that, the market has also just been a little bit weak and, it's just been pulling back, which I think is actually a good thing. And I'm actually going to be watching Apple for a potential day trade to the downside tomorrow, and hopefully this momentum continues down. But I will say this, there has been a lot of positive and just bullish price action in after hours so far because of this Meta report. So for this Apple downside setup, we'd have to see the overall market kind of in that weak slash bearish, I guess you could say sentiment for this play to work out good.
Yeah, and I think that could still actually happen because, the SPY actually ended up falling down today, even though we got some of those good reports yesterday, like Microsoft. I know Google actually ended up trading down into the red today very slightly, which was crazy. So I'm with you. I could see Apple also falling off to the downside. Talking about the big tech stocks down, I'm watching AMD. I know that we've been talking a lot about NVIDIA and these chip stocks to the downside lately. AMD actually had a pretty good recovery today, but they had a pretty big downtrend towards the end of the day there. If the market keeps turning over, I feel like this might just be a bit of a dead cat bounce going on with AMD. So if we end up moving under 85.50, I'll be watching for some puts. That was a pretty big support right around market close there. And, AMD is one of those nice stocks for day trades. It always has pretty good options and a pretty good volatility going on as well.
Oh, you know it. The next one I'm watching is another one that's normally pretty good for day trades, and that is Tesla. So Tesla actually has been in a downside earnings continuation setup over the past week or so, where they reported earnings, and ever since they reported earnings, they've just been selling off more and more and more each day, and it has been very consistent, and they're definitely in a pretty strong trend right now. It's definitely to the downside, and it's definitely flowing. So I'm watching Tesla to the downside tomorrow. It's in a decently strong downside trend.
Yeah, on the daily chart, it's definitely one of those stocks that's pulled back quite a bit from its recent high. Like that high up there was around like 217, 215. It's already pulled back 29%. And to be honest, it's still from the low to where it is up 50%. So that's still pretty good. I can definitely see it. And what's cool is that there's a big gap right here on the daily down to like 146. So maybe we'll see that come into play tomorrow a little bit as well. So we know Meta's doing pretty good tonight. It's flying to the upside in after hours. I'm actually going to watch Snapchat for some continued momentum up. I noticed there was a pretty big high this morning and in after hours right around $10.45. If we can break above this upper resistance here, I'll be watching it for a continuation up with Meta. Now, I think Snapchat is going to be a very interesting one for the next few days, obviously, but I think that as an intraday play, watch for that momentum. I think it can follow up with Meta. And even if you just want to play Meta, I think that could even be an amazing earnings continuation. But man, Mike, it just keeps going in after hours here. At some point, it's going to get a little overextended.
Yep, you know it. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have JP Morgan to the downside.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite plays this morning. All the banks were really selling off. Go ahead and make them break below that low of day there, right around 134. And I even see some opportunity below 135 if you wanted to try to trade a real quick scalp down.
All right, with the next one, we have Disney, also to the downside.
Yeah, DIS. I saw some news today between them and Ron DeSantis. Go ahead and make them move down under 96.35.
All right, and then with the last one, we have AMD, and we need both directions.
Good old AMD. Love that one. So to the downside here, watch for them to move below 85.40. Pretty big intraday support there. I know I talked about it a minute ago. If they end up moving up above this intraday area, right around 87.25, go ahead and watch for a push to the upside right there. I think that that could be a pretty good play. And Mike, I will say the book map right here is pretty insane, especially whenever we look at Meta, AMD, and a few of these other stocks here today. I thought there was a lot of opportunities as the day went forward. If we look at AMD here, there was a ton of liquidity all throughout the day at $87.60 there. If we break above that tomorrow, we might get a lot of liquidity coming in. There might be a lot of buyers. So watch 87.60. Obviously, we can see there's a lot of orders right there on the book. 48,944. Look at these other numbers here falling off as the market closed, and this one's still staying. So I'll definitely be watching that level tomorrow. And the book map is awesome. Check out the link down below. You can get a really awesome data. You can see right where these orders are in the market. So you don't really have to guess on support and resistance. You can just go right here on the book map and see, hey, there's a bunch of orders right here. So that's probably a pretty big level.
And here's the thing, Tom, just like you said, that $87.60 level for AMD still has those orders open. It's just those sell orders just sitting there waiting to be filled. So going into AMD tomorrow, if it gets close to that $87.60 range, you have to know that there's a lot of selling pressure right there, and it probably will not be the easiest to get through. So it's like, you definitely have to keep that in mind because, a lot of times we see fake outs where, a stock might get to like, let's say AMD in this situation, like $87.59 or $87.60, and maybe like just break above the resistance for a second. And then the next thing you know, it's like a giant fake out and the stock comes tumbling back down. But at least we know ahead of time, like, hey, we have orders just sitting here waiting to be filled.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do see a big breakout through that, and you do see a lot of liquidity come out to the upside, it could end up being a pretty big breakout. But like Mike said, it could be a pretty big thing to maybe front run some puts back down or something like that too. So there's lots of opportunities for entries there on the book map. I love it, Mike. It's been one of my favorite programs since we started using it just a couple months ago. So fantastic. Check out the link down below. I'll definitely be watching it pretty much all throughout the day. And I will say tons of traders in Discord have been loving it as well.
You know it. And we're actually partnered with Bookmap now. So you guys get a special discount only using the link in the description in the comments down below. So definitely make sure to check it out. And to wrap up the momentum plays, you guys heard Tom. We have the upside level on AMD. If it breaks above that, we'll be watching it for a day trade up. We have the downside level on AMD as well. So if it breaks below that, we're watching it for a day trade down. And then also don't forget about the Disney and JP Morgan setups. Basically, if those stocks break below those lower levels, we are watching them for day trades to the downside. But it is now time for the big money $3.1 million trade of today. We are looking at none other than Netflix. So Netflix has been selling off a little bit over the past couple of weeks. Nothing too crazy, but it's definitely been getting weaker. And we had someone put $3.1 million into the Netflix 400 strike put options that expire on June 16th of 2023. This is essentially a play where the big money or smart money is betting that Netflix will tank down in the future. Right now, Netflix is at $322 a share. These put options are deep in the money, where basically it's just like a giant short position on Netflix. And honestly, Tom, I don't think the setup's bad at all. I think Netflix is overextended to the upside, so that means it should pull back. And then on top of that, I know they're supposed to be doing some of the password sharing crackdowns in the US soon. And I've seen a decent amount of negative news in other markets that they are enacting those policies in. So the news isn't the best with them.
Yeah, it really isn't. And on that daily chart, they're starting to kind of get to the bottom of this trend. Like they're almost about to fall out of this upwards trend that they've been in. And if they do end up doing that, that's going to be a pretty big move back down. And on a technical level, over the past, 6, 7, almost the past year, to be honest, they've been on a pretty good uptrend ever since that big gap down last April. So now, we're going to see Netflix actually, they just reported, and we're going to obviously have the password sharing crackdown and stuff like that going on. With this big money play coming in, this gives me even more confidence that if we start to see maybe this 320 support start to break over the next couple of days, this could be a pretty good trade to follow. And I really like it that it's a pretty close expiration out there in June. It's not like they're holding this to January or anything. Seems like they're definitely looking for it to fall here over the next couple months.
Perfect. All righty, Tom. Well, we have a pretty exciting next day or so. Of course, these earnings from Microsoft, Google, and Meta have been great so far, but we still have one big dog left, Amazon, and a couple other decent-sized companies. So I think we're set for a pretty exciting rest of the week. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, those earnings are going to be pretty big here. I will say the SPY's starting to get down into free fall, guys. So keep that in mind. Some of these inverse ETFs like SPXS have been doing pretty well, SQQQ, other stuff like that. If we continue to see these stocks move down, these ETFs will probably end up doing pretty good. So keep that in mind. But hey, Meta and after hours, all the way up to 235 now, Mike. Just keeps going. I love to see it. I love Meta for the long term. I think that all their investments in the metaverse and everything like that are going to pay off big time as time goes on. But it's just crazy to see him up this much, Mike. Like I expected maybe a nice pop up to 220 or something. But like you said earlier in Discord, the market makers were expecting a pretty big move and it looks like they got it.
True that. All right, good stuff. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And last but not least, giant shout out to today's member of the day, Herm in the Stocked Up Discord. You've been in the chat for a couple weeks now, and you've been asking some pretty solid questions. So keep it up, and of course, keep up the activity as well. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's have a great end to the week.